As the historical Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry continued on the second day of Round 7, self-confessed double agent Robert Allen Gates came under intense cross-examination by attorneys representing various interests. The most intense came from Basil Williams, who represents the interest of the People's National Congress, PNC.
Mr. Gates,
yes, sir.
This is a total fabrication.
It's not, sir.
You just want to slander Mr. Burnham's name.
For what reason? He's a man I admired, and I always said he was the only real president.
And you forgot that he said he was pleased with your undercover assignment?
He may have been briefed, I don't know. I'm telling you, Mr. Burnham never told me anything personally. I never said that. That was always passed to me.
I'm happy, but this is hearsay.
I do agree.
You do agree?
Because he never said it to me personally, so it's hearsay.
Let's move on.
Mr. Williams, be very specific.
Yes.
Or else you may not be very helpful to those of us who have to determine the facts. You put it to him that it is a total fabrication.
Yes.
But what is it?
This account of him, of his so-called dealings with Mr. Emerson Simon.
The PNC regime had been blamed by several witnesses, many from within the Working People's Alliance, WPA, for the assassination of political scholar Dr. Walter Rodney. Williams said Gates' account of his dealings with former permanent secretary within the Ministry of National Development, Emerson Simon, was a total fabrication. Gates on Monday told the commission that Simon gave him money to fund moles or informants from within the Working People's Alliance, WPA. Williams also sought to discredit Gates on the grounds that many of the claims in his recent statement were not included in his earlier testimonies in June 2014.
You just automatically...
No, I can recall. I recalled afterwards that I was asked to go and see him.
Did you say that before? That's what
I didn't say it before because I didn't remember. It's 34 years ago, sir.
No, you give this statement now. I'm asking you, did you tell the commission or give them an account as to how you met Mr. Emerson Simon?
I didn't, and they didn't ask.
But in his statement, Mr. Williams, of the 11th of October,
I'm looking at
2014,
yeah.
He mentioned having several meetings with Mr. Simon.
Exactly.
Beyond that, he didn't go.
Exactly. Now, weren't you working with, according to your previous story, with Mr. Sister Skip Roberts at the time?
Yes, sir, but the system at that time didn't trust any one person, so they had you reporting to several persons.
No. You didn't tell us that. You only told us that you were reporting, because of Skip, you had some subordinates that you were reporting to. And then you also reported to some Brezhnev at Pegasus.
Sir. Yes, sir.
I'm saying to you, there is no mention at all about the Ministry of National Development.
No, because I didn't recall it at the time.
I don't think you're correct, though, in his testimony. I'm referring you to page 6.
Which testimony, sir?
Of his testimony.
Yesterday?
Yesterday.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about yesterday. Yeah. I'm talking about this elaborate evidence you gave on the last occasion when you testified. There was no mention about any other handler.
But in the statement of the 11th of October, he did mention it.
That's why I'm asking him about it now. How come he's only now mentioning it?
Because I can now recall, sir.
That's your explanation?
It's 34 years ago, Mr. Williams.
So, you've given a lot of evidence about 34 years ago.
Like I said, I remember things afterwards.
The PNC attorney deemed Gates' evidence relating to the late PNC leader Forbes Burnham as an attempt to bring Burnham's character into disrepute. However, Gates maintained that the exclusions were due to memory lapses given the time when they occurred, security concerns, or them being irrelevant at the time he first testified.
But prior to that coming to your attention, did you write in any public newspaper or publication about things that you knew?
I did, but I can't recall dates and newspapers.
Were they published?
Some of them, Starbuck News. I can't recall the Kaicho News carried in, but I think Starbuck News, if they check their archives, they may be able to.
One moment. In your letter, which we have, can you be shown a copy of this letter, please? You see, we have to assess your credibility if we want to know where the truth lies. If you look at that letter, the second paragraph, you were talking about Dr. Rodney being killed and so on, right? And you go on in that second paragraph with the sentence, even though some key players have died, there are still some alive holding constitutional positions, and at least two sitting in front row benches of Parliament.
You sure you put it in full context? Because it must be from the beginning of the...
Well, yes, that's because it's a public inquiry.
That's the letter that was circulated yesterday that you wrote to the
yeah, I agree.
newspaper.
This is the letter to the Guyana Chronicle. You start by saying, the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into the assassination of Dr. Walter Rodney is surely a plus for the governing PPPC administration. The time is long overdue for all those who conspired to kill Dr. Rodney to be exposed, and if the statute of limitation permits, be criminally charged. And this is the part I'm interested in. Even though some key players have died, there are still some alive holding constitutional positions, and at least two sitting in front row benches of Parliament. To whom are you referring?
I don't even think I would want to, for security reasons.
You don't want to?
I would prefer to say that to the Commission.
In camera?
In camera.
I see.
I'm prepared to do that.
I understand.
The merit of the new evidence presented by Gates was also tested by the commissioners and the Commission's counsel. The commissioners grilled Gates intensely, noting that the credibility of his testimony must be tested thoroughly, since many senior functionaries would be involved. In this regard, Gates requested private sessions with the commissioners, which Chairman Sir Richard Cheltenham agreed to facilitate for security reasons.
You also said you made the decision that that was an impossible mission and you chose to remain where you were.
What mission are you referring to?
Which, sorry?
What mission? Which mission? What mission? Impossible mission.
Of the WPA succeeding the PNC in government.
Because having spent some time within the WPA, I realized that they did not possess the military capacity to achieve their dreams.
And therefore, you made the decision to stay where the money was.
My first loyalty was to the state.
Could you elaborate just briefly for me, please, Mr. Gates, why you thought the WPA had no capacity
think he said military capacity.
Military capacity.
Yes.
The WPA didn't control. They may have infiltrated the army and was in control of a few fringe elements. They did not have the military intelligence that was necessary to carry out certain logistics. I made a personal assessment as a man who was on the ground that they did not possess the military capacity. They could not also achieve the presidency by way of ballot. It was almost impossible.
Why do you say that?
Because we all know that elections were not fair and free.
During cross-examination by attorney Christopher Ram, who represents the Working People's Alliance, Gates said he believes that the WPA did not possess the military capacity to attain their dreams of assuming government from the PNC. He noted too that it was impossible for the party to achieve the presidency by ballot, since elections during the PNC reign were never free and fair. Shockingly, Gates told commissioners that he had reason to believe that social activist Jocelyn Doll, who gave testimony at the inquiry and was very close to the WPA during Dr. Rodney's death, was an informant for the state. General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party, Clement Roy, is expected to testify on Thursday, while Dr. Rodney's brother, Donald Rodney, is expected to take the stand on Friday. Donald Rodney was sitting in the front seat of the car when the walkie-talkie exploded in his brother's lap on June 13, 1980. Assistant Lead Counsel to the Commission, Lashmir Ahmad, highlighted the main points of Gates' testimony.
Today we saw Mr. Alan Gates being cross-examined by counsel in relation to the interested parties. We saw Mr. Scotland asking him directly whether the theory that has been put forward coming out of the inquest that was held into the death of Dr. Rodney many years ago, where it was found by the sitting magistrate that Rodney would have died from misadventure. That scenario or that theory was put to Alan Gates because Alan Gates yesterday told us that he had intimate knowledge in relation to his undercover activities which were done back between the period 1979-1980. He also told us that sometime in 2010-2011, he also conducted investigations on his own in relation to the death of Dr. Rodney. And it's based on that premise, or based on that foundation he laid yesterday, Mr. Scotland, asked him whether that theory that Dr. Rodney would have died from misadventure would hold water, or whether he would believe that theory, or whether that theory has been dispelled. He said, based on the information he has received in his investigations, he does not believe that that theory can hold water, and he dispelled it. He said that he does not believe that Dr. Rodney would have died as a result of misadventure. In fact, we're coming back to an important point that was raised yesterday by this witness, Alan Gates, in the box, where he indicated that while he was conducting his interviews years later for his own investigation purposes, he spoke with a Sergeant Mark Johnson. And even Mr. Williams, under cross-examination, pointed out that until Mr. Gates returned to the box yesterday, there was no evidence coming from him that would have actually linked Mr. Burnham having any knowledge of the plot to kill Dr. Rodney. But what in fact came out as a result of his testimony yesterday was that this Sergeant Johnson would have given him first-hand information, that Sergeant Johnson was present at this meeting that was held 2 to 3 days before the death of Dr. Rodney, where the plot to kill Dr. Rodney was being discussed. It was put to Mr. Gates that he's fabricating this sort of evidence, that Mr. Burnham was not there and he cannot be sure that this was discussed. But the witness indicated that what he has told this commission on yesterday's date and his evidence before is what he remembered. And given the passage of time and given his own security concerns, because of the nature of the information he has given to the commission, his own personal safety is a concern and a priority for him. And those were the contributing factors as to why, if he did not say something before, he has now come to the commission for the second time. And he is trying to tell the commission that you should still believe what he's saying, because it doesn't mean he's lying, it doesn't mean he's not true. But it has been 34 years, and he was, for some of the information, afraid to tell it before, and now he wants to tell it. I would also remind the listening public that Alan Gates also wrote an article in July of 2013, which was tendered. And if you read that article, the contents of that article, a lot of what was said there has been repeated before the commission, and even one factor in particular of a prominent businesswoman was mentioned in that letter since July 2013. And it was only yesterday's date that Mr. Gates returned to the commission for the second time, and he told us about this businesswoman and named her, and went on to state that he believed that she was feeding information to Mr. McLean. With that being said, the witness has told the commission his reasons, and it would be up to the commission to decide what weight to place on his evidence.